In the cafeteria, the bully tried to break the new black girl's arm. A few seconds later, he was on the floor crying. The sound of bone being wrenched back boomed through the Lincoln High School cafeteria like a gunshot, and then a scream of pain made 300 students stop in their tracks. But it wasn't the scream that everyone thought they would hear. Kesha Williams, 17, had only been at the school for 2 weeks when she stood over Tyler Morrison, who was lying on the floor with his right wrist in his chest. What he should have done in public. In fewer than 5 seconds, embarrassment had morphed into his worst nightmare. Kesha calmly stated, "Someone should call the nurse." And then she adjusted her knapsack on her shoulder as if nothing had occurred. There was no touch of happiness or sadness in her voice, only a coldness that made some kids move back without meaning to. Tyler Morrison was more than simply a bully. At 18, he was the captain of the wrestling team and the mayor's son. He acted like Lincoln High was his family's private property. No one had ever thought about fighting back against him, not even a girl who had moved from a public school in Detroit. 3 weeks earlier, when Kesha showed up with her full scholarship and her noticeably simpler clothes, Tyler saw her as the perfect target right away. New girl, dark, impoverished, no friends, the type of easy target he loved to psychologically tear down before she could get her place in the school's social structure. But Tyler had missed an important point in the early days of teasing. When he got close, when he tried to scare her, Kesha would look at him like a naturalist would look at a boring insect species. Her eyes didn't show any fear, anger, or even discomfort. Just a cold, logical look at things. "What the heck was that?" Tyler groaned from the floor as he tried to stand up with one hand. "My wrist is broken." "Basic self-defense technique," Kesha said, looking at her watch like she was late for an appointment. "Pressure on certain points, controlled rotation, nothing permanent if you don't force unnecessary movements." The crowd around them began to murmur. This wasn't the language of an ordinary student. It was too specific, too technical, and the way she had moved, it hadn't been luck or reflex. It had been training. Principal Peterson appeared, rushing through the crowd of students. What happened here? His first reaction was to automatically address Tyler. After all, it was impossible for the mayor's son to be she was the aggressor in any situation. "She attacked me out of nowhere," Tyler shouted, pointing at Kesha with his good hand. "She broke my wrist for no reason." Kesha stayed quiet for a moment, then took her phone out of her pocket. "Actually, I recorded the whole thing. Want to see?" Tyler's face went pale. For the past 15 minutes, he had been systematically escalating his intimidation, moving from whispered racial slurs to direct physical threats, culminating in an attempt to twist Kesha's arm behind her back, just to teach her a lesson about respect. It had all been recorded in high definition. That's illegal," Tyler stammered, realizing he had fallen into a perfectly planned trap. "You can't record people without permission." "Connecticut is a one-consent state," Kesha replied without showing any emotion. "Anyone involved in a conversation can legally record it. Section 53A 189 of the State Penal Code." Principal Peterson was visibly uncomfortable. The mayor's daughter, quoting specific legal statutes, was not. Kesha put her phone away and calmly walked toward the cafeteria exit. She stopped for a moment as she passed Tyler's group of friends, the same ones who had laughed at her taunts over the past few days. "For those who are wondering," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "I didn't come to Lincoln High to make friends or cause trouble. I came here for a very specific reason, and you just gave me what I needed." Her eyes met for a brief moment. Tyler's friends were still helping him up off the floor. "Thanks for your help." As Kesha walked down the hall, leaving behind 300 completely confused students, Tyler finally got to his feet. But when he looked around for help, he only saw confused stares and something he had never seen before directed at him. Doubt. If this story about a girl who turned her first school fight into something much bigger is making you curious about what really happened, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what Tyler Morrison didn't know yet was that breaking his arm had been only the first step in a much more elaborate plan, and one far more devastating than anyone at Lincoln High could have imagined. During the 3 days following the incident in the cafeteria, Tyler Morrison discovered something disturbing. No one was talking about how Kesha had attacked him. Instead, the hallways were abuzz with whispers about the video she had recorded and especially about the things Jessica Martinez whispered to some classmates near the lockers that Tyler had called her before trying to hurt her. He said girls like her should know their place before trying to physically intimidate her. Tyler, whose wrist was in a splint and whose reputation was in tatters, decided he needed to take control of the situation. If Kesha Williams thought she could humiliate him and get away with it, she was about to find out exactly who she was messing with. On Thursday morning, Tyler called his closest pals to the parking lot before class and said, "Listen, this girl needs to learn a lesson. My dad has already spoken with Principal Peterson. She'll be kicked out by the end of the week." "Dude, are you sure?" "She filmed you making threats," Jake, the team's quarterback, said. "It doesn't matter what she recorded," Tyler cut in, his voice full of hate. "My dad is the mayor of this town. The Williams family are Detroit nobles who came here on a charity scholarship. What do you think the school will do to protect you?" But Tyler made a big mistake. While he was talking about his revenge in the parking lot, Kesha walked up close enough to hear every word. And as always, her phone was recording. Kesha Williams didn't just happen to be at Lincoln High. 3 years ago, when she was 14, she lost her older brother, Marcus, in a way that the family will never forget. Marcus was a brilliant student who got a scholarship to a private school in Connecticut, just like Lincoln High. For the first 6 months Marcus was at that school, the letters he sent home changed. They went from being excited and hopeful to talking about small problems and misunderstandings with other students. The last letter came 2 weeks before he died. In it, he told Kesha, "No matter what happens to me, promise me you'll never let people like that think they're better than you just because they have money." The truth always comes out, but sometimes it requires a little push. Marcus had died in an accident during a party at a schoolmate's house. Officially, he had drunk too much and fallen from a second-story balcony. But Kesha never believed that version, especially after discovering that Marcus's clothes contained evidence of a struggle. Evidence that was inexplicably lost during the investigation. The father of the student who hosted the party, an influential local politician, the investigator in charge of the case, an old friend of that same politician's family. The accidental conclusion conveniently filed away before any more uncomfortable questions could be asked. For the next 3 years, Kesha devoted herself obsessively to her studies, sports, and especially to learning everything she could about self-defense and investigation. Not to seek impulsive revenge, but to systematically prepare herself for the moment when she could infiltrate the world that had killed her brother. Lincoln High was not a random choice. It was the sister school of the institution where Marcus had died, sharing teachers, traditions, and especially the same kind of culture that let privileged students act without fear of punishment. Tyler Morrison, whom Kesha found out about during her research, had been at the party where Marcus died. More than that, he had posted pictures on Instagram from that night. Pictures that showed Marcus looking uncomfortable and being systematically isolated and teased by Tyler's group. While Tyler planned his revenge against her, Kesha had already gathered 3 years of proof of the protective network that let people like him ruin lives without consequences. Recordings of conversations, screenshots of social media, documents about suspicious student transfers, and patterns of behavior that showed a toxic institutional culture. On Friday, Tyler finally made his move. During lunch, he approached the table where Kesha was eating alone, accompanied by 5 friends and holding a printed copy of what appeared to be an official document. "Well, well," Tyler said. "It seems some people need to learn about consequences," he said loudly enough for half the cafeteria to hear. He threw the paper onto Kesha's table with a triumphant smile. It was a pending suspension notice saying you had threatened and behaved violently toward other students without provocation. My lawyer got an order to review all that footage of you, Tyler said, his voice dripping with malicious satisfaction. Apparently, editing evidence to make yourself look innocent is a federal crime. Who would have known? Kesha looked over the paper carefully, and then looked Tyler in the eye. Interesting. Are you sure you want to choose this path? Oh yes, I'm sure. Tyler laughed and pointed at his companions, who also smiled in a bad way. You girls need to realize that messing with the wrong people can have bad effects. Girls like me, Kesha said gently again, as she put the paper in her backpack. Tyler, what kind of girl do you think I am? The type of person that arrives from Detroit, requires help to study here, and doesn't get how things truly work. Tyler answered, and every syllable was full with bias and pride. The type of person who thinks she can record a few words and take down those who truly matter in this town. Kesha nodded carefully, as if she were taking in all that was said. Then, for the first time since she got to school, she smiled. Not a nervous or pleasant smile, but something that made Tyler step back without meaning to. Tyler, she replied, in a calm voice, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. She rose up, put her backpack away, and proceeded toward the door to the cafeteria. She stopped for a second as she walked by Tyler. Oh, and Tyler, that court order your lawyer got. It's going to be very useful when my lawyer asks the federal government to look into patterns of racial discrimination and crime cover-ups at the school. Thanks for giving me exactly what I needed. Tyler stood still, taking in what he had just heard. Kesha had said, my lawyer, as if it were something someone would say about going to the dentist. Unless there was something about Kesha Williams that he had totally missed, poor girls from Detroit didn't have lawyers. Tyler saw that the other students weren't looking at him with fear or admiration like they had been before as she walked away. But there was something different in their gaze, a careful interest in who this quiet girl actually was. The one who had just turned his attempt to scare someone into what sounded like a very real threat. That Tyler tried to phone the law company his father had told him about in the afternoon, but he found something troubling. A civil rights legal firm that had been looking into Lincoln High for months was actually challenging the court ruling he felt was in his favor. The girl from Detroit wasn't simply playing defense. Tyler didn't even aware they were playing a game, but she was already several steps ahead, and every arrogant thing he did merely gave the other side more reasons to fight, blow up in a way that no one at that school could have believed was possible. Tyler Morrison came to school the next Monday feeling more sure of himself. Tyler's dad had made some smart phone calls over the weekend, and now Tyler was sure that Kesha Williams would not only be sent out of school, but also sued for lying about the evidence. Don't worry, son. Mayor Morrison stated this at supper on Sunday. That girl definitely doesn't know who she's dealing with. Tomorrow, you'll see how things truly do well at work if you know the appropriate people. Tyler, on the other hand, encountered something unexpected when he got to school that morning. Kesha was sitting in Principal Peterson's office, talking quietly with a man in a suit that Tyler didn't know. He could see through the glass door that both of them seemed entirely at ease, like this was a normal meeting. Who's that dude? Tyler asked Jake in the hall. I don't know, but he drove up in a black BMW with government plates, Jake answered, and it was evident that he was nervous. And he doesn't look like he lives around here. An hour later, as Kesha exited the office, she strolled right by Tyler like he wasn't there. But the man in the suit came to a stop next to him in the hall. Tyler Morrison? He inquired in a voice that sounded like it came from a professional. My name is James Wright, and I work for the Department of Justice as a federal agent. We'd like to chat to you and your dad about several things that happened 3 years ago, like the party at your house on March 15th. Tyler's blood froze. That was the date of the party where Marcus Williams died, something his family had fought hard to forget, and Tyler felt was permanently stored away. Tyler sputtered, "I don't know what you're talking about," yet his hands were shaking. "That's interesting." Agent Wright jotted something down in a little notepad, "because we have proof that you shared 47 pictures from that night on your social media. Photos that were mysteriously erased 2 days after Marcus Williams died. But you should realize that things don't really go away from the internet, do they?" Tyler struggled to make sense of what he was hearing. If they could see the deleted photos, they probably could see a lot more. The private messages he sent to his friends making fun of Marcus, the videos that made it evident that Marcus hadn't been drinking on purpose. They wanted to teach the stuck-up guy from Detroit a lesson with the audio recordings. Tyler responded, "My father will want to talk to your bosses about this," seeking to get back some of his power. Voice. "Actually," Agent Wright said with a chilly smile, "your boss has already talked to your dad this morning. He's being very helpful. Maybe you should do the same." That afternoon, Tyler learned that the investigation had not started last week, as he had thought. A federal task force had been collecting information for the previous 6 months about patterns of racial discrimination and suspected cover-ups of crimes at exclusive private schools in Connecticut. High School Lincoln wasn't the only school being looked into. It was the first case. And Keisha Williams wasn't just a regular kid who had gotten into a bad circumstance. She was a trained informant who worked directly with the FBI to gather evidence and expose a system that let privileged pupils get away with anything. Tyler was having a hard time dealing with this terrible news. Kesha was 3 streets away from the school, sitting in a quiet cafe with Agent Sarah Chun. It's funny that one of the pupil's older sisters had chosen to leave Lincoln High the year before because of an incident with one of Tyler's buddies. Agent Chin remarked, "These recordings from this week are great." She was looking over the files on her laptop. Tyler thoroughly incriminated himself, and Principal Peterson's reaction to trying to cover it up was even better. "We have enough evidence for criminal and civil lawsuits. What about Mayor Morrison?" Kesha asked, sipping her coffee like they were talking about the weather. He completely lost it this morning. He told the meeting he set up 3 years ago to deal with the Marcus Williams problem. Names, dates, amounts paid to shell the investigation, all written down and recorded. Kesha nodded, but didn't seem happy. For her, it had never been about getting back at someone. It had been about making sure no other family went through what hers had gone through. "How many other families have we been able to identify?" she inquired. "There have been 14 verified instances at Lincoln High in the last 5 years, alone. Black and Latino students voluntarily transferred or were expelled for disciplinary issues after confrontations with wealthy white students. All cases were closed without proper investigation." Agent Chun closed her laptop and looked directly at Kesha. "Are you sure you want to proceed with the final phase? Tyler Morrison is going to try one last desperate move tomorrow. It's going to be aggressive and probably dangerous." "I hope so," Kesha replied calmly. "I need him completely out of control so he tells everything in front of witnesses, so there is no doubt about who he is." On Tuesday morning, Tyler went to school with 2 private security guards hired by his father. His plan had changed. If he couldn't make Kesha disappear quietly, he would make her disappear in a very public and humiliating way. During recess, Tyler stood in the middle of the main courtyard where all the students were and started shouting for everyone to hear. "Attention, everyone! The girl you think is some. This kind of hero is really a government informant. She came here just to spy on you and your family." People in the crowd murmured. Some students seemed perplexed, while others looked afraid. Tyler took this as proof and went on, Kesha Williams isn't even her real name. She is a professional agent who was sent here to ruin our school and our families. The FBI has gotten recordings of every discussion you've had with her. Kesha stood at the edge of the gathering, calm seeing Tyler fall apart in public. She just nodded when their eyes met. The signal they had agreed on. "Yes, it's true," Tyler yelled and pointed at her. "Just admit it. Let everyone know who you really are." Kesha went gently through the crowd until she was right in front of Tyler. Everyone in the crowd stopped talking and waited for her to answer. "Tyler," she murmured in a calm voice that carried across the courtyard. "You're right. I came here for a reason, and tomorrow everyone will know exactly why." What that reason was. She looked at the group of kids. "Tyler Morrison wants you to know the truth about me." "Okay. At 10:30 a.m. tomorrow, the complete truth about myself, him, this institution, and what truly happens when students like Marcus Williams attempt to dream bigger than what people like Tyler think they should have, will be told in the main auditorium." Tyler turned pale when he heard Marcus Williams's name. Some older kids remembered hearing about a student who had died but didn't know anything about it. Made the links. "Do you want to know the real me?" Kesha kept talking, and her voice got stronger. "You'll find out tomorrow. But first, Tyler, why don't you tell everyone here what you did to my brother Marcus before he fell from that balcony at the party on March 15th, 3 years ago?" Tyler couldn't move at all. People in the crowd around him started to whisper loudly. Some individuals were already recording with their phones, while others were texting texts like crazy. It was at that point Tyler knew he had committed the biggest mistake of his life. He had given Kesha exactly what she needed by making them fight in public. An audience to show everyone what his family had tried so hard to keep secret for so long. Tyler's father was on the phone in his office that afternoon when Tyler got home. He looked completely panicked. Mayor Morrison was doing everything he could to get in touch with anyone who could assist him deal with a situation that was getting absolutely out of control. For a moment, when Tyler saw the real fear, he suddenly knew that Kesha Williams wasn't just a brilliant student who stood up to a bully. His father, who had always been able to fix any problem with a few well-placed phone calls, looked at him. She was something much more dangerous. Someone who had spent 3 years carefully planning to kill him, and the whole system that kept him safe. The Lincoln High Auditorium was full to the brim on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Students, instructors, parents, and even reporters from the area all crammed into the people in the seats, who were all interested in what Kesha had promised to reveal. Tyler came with 3 lawyers his father had hired. He was sure he would finally be able to prove that Kesha was a fake and ruin her reputation for good. He sat in the front row with a smug smirk on his face and recorded everything on his phone. "Everyone," Tyler spoke loudly so that everyone could hear, "you are about to see an expert liar be caught on camera." Kesha came out on stage by herself with a plain t-shirt with a picture of her on it. Marcus Williams's brother, with the words "Justice for Marcus Williams, 2018 to 2021" on the front. There was no sound in the auditorium. "Kesha Williams is my name." She started to speak in a calm voice that echoed through the sound system. "Tyler Morrison is also right. I wasn't just a regular kid at Lincoln High." People in the audience whispered to each other. Tyler smiled with pride, thinking he had won. "I came here as part of a federal investigation into murder, human trafficking, and corruption that has been going on inside the school for more than 5 years. Tyler's smile went away right away. Kesha took out a remote control and a screen came down behind her. "My older brother was Marcus Williams. He went to a party at the Morrison family's house 3 years ago." These pictures from the party started to show up on the screen. Pictures that Tyler thought were gone for good. Marcus looked uneasy being around a lot of other classmates. Tyler putting something in Marcus's drink without his permission. Marcus wobbling and being pulled out onto the balcony. "No!" Tyler yelled, standing up in a hurry. "These pictures aren't real. They've been changed." In fact, Kesha kept her cool. Along with these audio recordings, FBI forensic analysts found them. The speakers made Tyler's voice echo across the auditorium. "This boy from Detroit needs to know where he stands. Let's give him a lesson that will stick with him." Tyler's face was all white now. Students around him started to leave, muttering to each other with looks of amazement and disdain. Marcus Keisha stated that he was killed, and her voice showed the sorrow of 3 years of loss. "And you used money and political power to hide it." There were official papers on the screen, questionable cash transactions, notes from private meetings, and texts between Mayor Morrison and dishonest investigators. Tyler tried to get out, but all the doors were blocked by federal agents. Agent Wright stood next to Kesha on stage. He officially told Tyler Morrison, "You are under arrest," for Tyler said, "My father will destroy you all," as he was detained in front of the whole school for manslaughter, hiding a body, and obstructing justice. "You don't know how strong the power you're up against is." Kesha stated that your father is being detained right now in his downtown office, together with Principal Peterson, 2 dishonest investigators, and the judge who threw out Marcus's case. The crowd started yelling and talking. Students wrote down everything. Parents were anxiously calling each other. The teachers were completely shocked when they saw each other. As the agents dragged Tyler away, Kesha spoke straight to him. "Marcus was smart, nice, and wanted to be a doctor. You killed him and all of his dreams. Now you're going to pay for every second of pain you caused." Tyler cried in a desperate voice. "This isn't over. My family has connections you can't even imagine." "Dad," Kesha said, "because each of those links is being looked into right now. 12 other families got justice today." Tyler was dragged out of the auditorium crying and screaming about how unfair it was. Everyone in the room knew how ironic it was. Kesha turned to the audience, especially the students who had stayed quiet for weeks while Tyler humiliated her. "Marcus taught me that the truth always finds a way. It just needs someone brave enough to open the door." The auditorium fell completely silent as she left the stage. For 3 weeks, they had passively watched a girl being constantly attacked and humiliated. Now they discovered that she was there to fight for justice, not only for herself, but for all the victims who had no voice. As Tyler disappeared into the federal vehicle, crying like a child, Kesha knew that Marcus could finally rest in peace. The weak girl from Detroit had brought down an entire empire of corruption and privilege, proving that sometimes justice arrives exactly when it is needed most. 6 months later, Tyler Morrison was serving a 15-year sentence for manslaughter in a federal prison. He quickly learned how the world really worked when you didn't have the money or power to buy your freedom. Mayor Morrison resigned in complete disgrace, losing not only his office, but also the family fortune in lawsuits and federal fines. The mansion where Marcus had been murdered was taken over and turned into a community center for underprivileged youth, an irony that did not go unnoticed by anyone. Lincoln High was completely renovated. Principal Peterson was replaced by a black educator specializing in civil rights, and the school implemented rigorous anti-discrimination programs. 12 students who had been voluntarily transferred in previous years received compensation and invitations to return. Kesha Williams became the youngest FBI special agent at age 18, specializing in investigating hate crimes in educational institutions. Her story inspired a federal law requiring private schools that went unnoticed by anyone. Lincoln High was completely renovated. Principal Peterson was replaced by a black educator specializing in civil rights, and the school implemented rigorous anti-discrimination programs. 12 students who had been voluntarily transferred in previous years received compensation and invitations to return. Kesha Williams became the youngest FBI special agent at age 18, specializing in investigating hate crimes in educational institutions. Her story inspired a federal law requiring private schools to report suspicious patterns of transfers and expulsions known as the Marcus Williams Act. The case uncovered a network of corruption that spanned the entire state, resulting in the arrest of 14 officials and the complete overhaul of the local criminal investigation system. During a ceremony honoring the victims, Kesha held a photo of Marcus and spoke to hundreds of families who had finally found justice. My brother taught me that true strength doesn't come from shouting the loudest, but from Tyler Morrison tried to break a weak black girl from Detroit, but he found out that she had spent 3 years getting ready to kill people like him. Kesha showed that the best revenge isn't just killing your enemies. It's making a world where they can never hurt anyone again. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel for more stories that show that real justice sometimes needs extraordinary people willing to fight for it. Because in the end, the strong stay in power only as long as the brave let them.